You're listening to The Rich Life Revolution with me, Michelle Cooper. My mission is to empower you to step into your next level of wealthy. You'll hear all the deets, a little bit of inspiration, and real life takeaways so that you can create your own rich life revolution. Let's dig in. Hey girl, hey, welcome to the Rich Life Revolution. I'm Michelle, your host, and we're circling back to standards. I introduced this idea, spurred on by my friend Jill, about raising our standards. And in that episode, if you haven't listened, go listen to that first, because this is kind of like part two. I talked a little bit about our identity, right? Like who we see ourselves as is what directly manifests into the world. And so we can also look at who do we want to be, right? What is the version of me that has higher standards, that maybe handles things differently? And what decisions or actions would she take? So we're going to dive head on into that today. I'm going to share with you my realizations as I circled back to this work, and I'm looking at up-leveling things even more. I feel like there's always a new level, right? It can always get better. Let's not just try for it. Let's not work on it. As I said, that's very lack-based. Let's not hope for better. We are making bold moves. We are not waiting for permission. We are going for it. If we aren't setting standards to remove people from our lives that are not for our highest good, that are not supporting us, they're not cheering us on from the sidelines, if we're not removing that influence, then we're saying that that's okay. Now, this isn't about icing people out or, anything like that. It's about protecting our energy. And it's about focusing on what we want, not other people and what they want, right? It's all about the boundaries. And I talked about how I was putting myself last, right? In particular, making sure everybody else in my business and my life got paid before I did, like the real dollars and cents going into the bank account. Well, something to consider is, how does it serve you? How does it serve me? How does it serve my family? How does it serve my friends? How does it serve my employees not to put myself first? Because I'm telling you, if I go down, it's going to affect them. It's just how it is. So raising our standards isn't about wanting more. It's about being better. But you have to choose it. It's your choice. You get to choose. So for me, I want my standards to be clear, like crystal clear, and I want them to be high. In my business, me getting paid is a non-negotiable. And super honest transparency here, I sometimes don't get paid. I get paid later. Like, I don't go without pay at all, but every other things get paid first, and I'm like, oh, I'll figure out my own pay later. Right? I don't think that's appropriate. I wouldn't advise my clients of that. So why am I settling for that? It's non-negotiable. It's reliable. It's not dependent on if we can afford to pay me this week, right? I want team members in my business who are A players, who get their work done efficiently and at a really high level. They are on time, they show up focused and present in the moment, and they're prepared for their workday ahead. I want friendships that are mutually supportive, where we are both participating and engaged. It's a reciprocal relationship. I want to eat better. I want the standard of food that comes into my body to be higher. I want to be way more hydrated. That's a thing, okay? That's like a thing. And I have a hard time with this, but that's something I desire. And the gap between all of that and where I am right now is basically operating from an old identity. It's operating from an identity with my kids and in my business and in my relationships that is the old Michelle. It's a previous version of me. And it was okay. Like, that version is fine. I'm not judging her. I'm not shaming her. I'm not putting her down, anything like that. It's totally fine. It's just not where I want to be now. The Michelle with higher standards sets very clear expectations with the people in her life. She communicates clearly and isn't afraid of people leaving or being pissed off at her. She prioritizes her well-being and her desires. And she doesn't lower her standards. Like, she's not lowering things to make things okay for other people. And when I got clear on that, I was like, oh my God, that's the Michelle. That is the identity. I adore that. So absolutely, people are allowed to have their own opinions and their own reaction to my higher standards, right? It's not my responsibility to make it okay for them. And it's okay if people can't rise to meet me at my new standards. That's totally fine. However, I do know the right ones will rise to meet me. And it's, what is it? Like higher tides lift all boats, right? Every person in my life is either supporting my growth or they're joining me in stagnation. They're joining me in what I'm tolerating. They're joining me in people pleasing, saying yes when I don't want to say yes. I want to scream no, where I have resentment about what I'm doing and spending my time on, where I'm not being vocal about what I believe, or I'm avoiding conflict and not expressing myself and not asking for what I want and what I need, and spending time with people who aren't reciprocal or who aren't even aligned. Why am I doing that? No more. It's done. So Jill takes us in her audio series. She takes you through a great exercise where she I think she calls it a relationship inventory, and you're listing out, the people in your life, and do they encourage you? Are they supportive of transformation? Do they energize you? Do they match your energy? Are they in alignment with that higher standard version of you? And it's a really great exercise because you can go, oh, interesting. Now, again, doesn't mean you need to ice these people out, but you need to be making an intentional, conscious decision, right? How I want to show up in all of these relationships is clear and confident. So then we have to look at, what are we committed to doing? We have to be committed to raising our standards in the relationships and be willing to say when something isn't meeting the standard that we are desiring in our lives. Not chasing relationships, not people pleasing. And I basically realized that if these people in my life, all of the people in my life, if they want a relationship with me, they will respond when I am clear. People can't respond when you're unclear, or when you have no boundaries, or when things are shifting a lot. Like, it's okay now, but then it's not okay. It's okay today, it's not okay tomorrow, right? When you don't have standards for what you're looking to call in, you will take whatever comes your way. Okay? I'm going to say that again, another mic drop. When you don't have standards for what you're looking to call in, you will take whatever comes your way. So let's talk about some places that we have standards to just to look at, to consider, right? There's standards in our business. We could consider pricing, where you might be pricing things based on what you think people will pay, what they can afford, or assuming that people can't pay your price and so you lower it, or assuming that people can't afford more or they wouldn't value it, right? You're settling for less, a lesser value than what you truly desire and what is profitable in your business. It might mean that you're dreading or avoiding conversations or messages with clients because they drain you, even conversations or messages or whatever from team members, because it's draining to deal with those people. It might mean that you're working with people because you think you need the money, even though they drain your energy. So these are people who are out of alignment with you and where you're at. It doesn't mean they're right or wrong or anything like that. There's no judgment around it. It's just that it's for you, it's draining, right? You could be tolerating a C player in your business, avoiding conflict, hand holding. They're not following processes. They're entitled. They're not hitting their goals. They aren't contributing to the growth of the business. And C players, they need to go, right? B players tend to infect A players. You want A players in your business. You might be keeping people on your team who are misaligned. And the thing about that is that you're allowing them to stay in something that is not aligned for them. So there is absolutely something better in the world out there for them. So it's a disservice to you and it's a disservice to them. The people we hire in our business and the people we choose to keep on our team is a direct reflection of our standards. And I have learned this over and over and over again. I have to be an A player in my business to attract A players in my business. A players don't want to work for B or C leaders, right? So if I feel that someone isn't meeting expectations, I have to show up with higher standards and lead from those higher standards. It is super interesting to look at this from an outside perspective and take radical responsibility for what's going on in your business. So standards around goals, I think is really interesting, right? There's the whole saying of like set goals and God laughs or whatever. I think that's super interesting because I have always been a high goal setter, and I set goals from the place of co-creation. It's an energy of co-creation. I know that I have to do my part, but there's a big part that I have no control over. It's the universe. It's dropping the breadcrumbs. It's aligning the pieces, right? But some good questions we can ask ourselves is, how good can this get? How fun could this be? And how easy could this be? Now, in order to kind of reflect on that, we have to be completely detached from the outcome. The goals are not about getting, they're about growing. And that's a quote direct from the amazing Bob Proctor. Detached from the outcome, goals are not about getting, they are about growing. So we can set goals based on our new standards, on our new identity, right? Remember, don't choose what you want. Keep upgrading until what you want chooses you. Now, I'm going to do a whole other episode on this because what happened for me in a relationship situation is a direct manifestation based on that sentence. Choosing what I want was not the thing. It was upgrading my standards, and then what I want chose me. It matched my energy. I'll share that story with you guys, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, how do you know if your standards for your goals are a little too low? Well, your goals are set based on what you have achieved in the past or what you feel confident in achieving, right? You might be micromanaging how this all happens. You know, if it's a business goal, it's like, well, 10 leads, I convert at 50%. I'm going to make my 5 new clients that I want. That whole approach is setting goals based on predictability, and nothing is predictable in our world. Setting goals on predictability is basically protection mechanism. It's playing not to lose. It's not playing to win. You might also feel like your goals don't light you on fire. Like they're not exciting to you. They're kind of Your goals should absolutely energize you. They could scare the shit out of you, but they should absolutely energize you. Or maybe you're creating like quote unquote realistic goals, right? Realistic goals create realistic money. It's settling energy. It's tolerating energy. Comfort zones are mediocrity, and that's lack. Mediocrity is lack. White knuckling your business is preservation, right? It's playing defense, and that's not growth. So set goals that match the woman who has your new standards. And what will happen, I promise you, is that you will run straight into new challenges because you are at a new standard. The universe will give you challenges that match your standards. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. You can't raise your goal standards by avoiding failure and playing it safe. You have to step into higher goal standards to get bigger results. So I'm going to give you a few questions that I found really useful whenever I'm trying to up level my goals, right? Picturing that next level of me, that with the higher standards, what's around me? Who am I surrounded by? Where am I? How do I feel? Getting really clear on that. What is the 5 goals that that person is pursuing? What's the energy that she walks in? Why does she want those things? What's that driving force behind her? And what are the first thoughts that you have when you start thinking about this? Right? Do you notice frustration, disbelief? Do you notice happiness, joy, excitement? That's going to tell you kind of where you're at. I promise you, you don't need to know the how. You can just let that go. The only thing you need to know is the what and why it matters to you. So consider that. Do that work. I did a whole bunch of journaling. I bought these fun felt pens and I did some little doodles and pictures and stuff like that. I made this a really fun process. I basically doodled out my house and it was a lot of fun. And I got really clear on what this all looks like. I'm looking in my journal now. This is a lot of pages here on this. Yeah, I love it. This was so much fun to do. And I invite you to consider this. If this is something you want to dive deeper into, of course, I'll put the link for Jill's standards audio series in the show notes in case you want to go that route. And if you are wanting to create your version of your rich life, you could consider checking out the Rich Life Revolution Mastermind. Thanks for hanging out with me today. It has been my pleasure. You can follow me on all the socials at Michelle B. Cooper. Hit me up in my DMs, slide on in there. Let me know what you think of the podcast, any feedback, and share with me your standards. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you got at least one gold nugget today. Be sure to grab your copy of the Rich Life Revolution workbook to help you set the foundation for your next level of wealthy. Get it now at richliferevolution.ca, and I'll see you later.